I've dealt with a lot of toxicity in my life. My family, my family is a huge part of it. You know, since I've healed and done so much work on myself and, had this awakening and just have a different perspective, then I found out about all this crazy shit and the world not being at all what it appears to be. I am a very balanced person. I'm a very genuine person. I no longer wear any mask to, try to get someone maybe to accept me or like me, or a group to, accept a false me. If they aren't interested, I'm not worried about it. I keep running into, first it was at Love's, and now today here it's at the place I'm staying. I've been staying here for months, and I've been changing my bedding once a week, and he's had me bring it in through the lobby to where they launder it. I had no service in my room from the beginning, but it's becomes a problem. Last week he changed the rules up on me, and I was like, okay. I went without any bedding in my arms, which is what I've always done, and I asked for the new set, and he said I would have to bring the old set first, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm not trying to steal the sheets, but okay, sure. So I did it that way. Then doing the same thing that he wanted me to do last week, this week becomes a problem. So much so that he's telling me I might need to look for somewhere different to live, and I'm like, I'm not, despite what people want to project onto me from their very toxic and unhealed selves, I'm not the problem here. I'm not looking for a problem. He said I was argumentative. I wanted to argue. No, actually, I went in there to look for my packages and to ask him to please take me off of having service again because they're knocking on my door. And his son had told me this morning that it was this particular manager. He's not really the owner, but the one I've been dealing with, that he's the one who put me back on for service, and I would have to speak to him. So that's what I tried to do. And then this nosy housekeeper tries to butt her 2 cents in. The only thing is this guy who's the manager, I don't have any problem with him. He's, a no-nonsense kind of person. He kind of barks at some of his employees. He's an okay guy. He seems nice to his grandchild, but he seems a little bit harsh as a boss. But he's not my boss, and I'm paying to be here, and I've had no service the whole time, and I clean my room myself. I don't want people coming in here. I haven't changed. He's the one changing. And then to make it out as if I'm looking for trouble, I'm trying to be argumentative. No, but what he is, I also am. I advocate for myself, and I don't put up with people's bullshit. And people keep trying to make me swallow their bull. He is constantly changing what he is okay with. And I told him, I'll follow whatever rules you want. I just need to know what they are, because they literally, you told me to do this last week, and then this week it's a problem. And he won't acknowledge that. And then that's when the housekeeper butt in. And that housekeeper in particular, I don't think she'll be here probably more than a year. She's always talking about how awful it is here, how, this person, that. And then she says she doesn't talk about people. So, it's just ridiculous. These are just toxic people projecting their, unhealed. They haven't looked at themselves. They don't want to look and see, am I being fair? Am I being reasonable? Did I actually tell her that last week? Or is she lying? Because I'm not lying. And I'm not being mean. And then they start raising their voice at me. And I'm not raising my voice at them, but I'm trying to advocate for myself. I'm trying to say, look, this is what you did last week. And so then people want to say, oh, and then he actually even said, when I was walking away, almost out the door, he said, no wonder they fired you. And it's wow, that's just a sucker punch, that's just completely uncalled for. And this is what I mean. This is the way I don't treat people. I don't treat people like that. My sister in her first marriage, I had warned them not to get married because they had been dating for only a few months, and they were so in love, and I said, wouldn't you be so in love, a year from now? And when they got divorced a number of years later, and had been divorced for a while. She made a comment to me that her first husband had said to her, he was her ex-husband then, he had said, I bet your sister said I told you so. And she said, no, she actually never did say anything. And that's the kind of person I am. No, I never did say anything. Why did I need to? Why did I need to rub it in? It wasn't about being right. It was about trying to help, And honestly, my marriage and her marriages both are way worse than what they appear. At Love's, there was so much of this. There was so much just toxic, just a toxic environment where you can't. I'm a firm believer in bringing a problem to management, but there wasn't really a reception to that. They weren't open, and I wasn't being nitpicky either, or even me kind of being thrust into an area, a department, and not really being trained truly yet, and then even being left alone there, and then kind of the comments even from the manager like, oh, you don't know that yet? It's like, well, I've only been here this many days and y'all haven't taught me that. I haven't been allotted the time to watch the videos that might teach me that. And then you become the problem because you're saying the truth. And when you become the problem, I learned that in the last 3 years, when you become the problem, when you're true and honest, sincere, bringing a problem to someone, like I used to go to the church leaders with like concerns, whether it would be doctrinally or whether it was me reaching out because of my toxic marriage. When you go to someone with a problem and you then become the problem, that is like a huge warning flag of toxicity, of unhealed people who are not doing right by you. It's not right. It's not something you should accept. It's not like, I think what I used to do in whatever the situation would have been, let's think the one going to the church leaders, right? So when they would have kind of like thrust back, well, yeah, but don't you think you could blah, 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 blah. And yes, of course, we can all look at ourselves, but I was someone looking at myself. I was someone who was definitely already, had already made lots of changes to try to like make concessions to make the marriage work. So like, it wasn't like I was someone who was completely not self-aware. I'm very self-aware. So when you become the problem, you go to your manager or you go to your church leader and you've got a real issue and you're trying, and you leave. This is the way it used to happen. I would leave feeling almost like stupid for even trying to bring them the issue or let it be known, or you know what I mean? People can turn things around on you in such a way. And like with the hotel, I told him I didn't want service from the get-go, and I have really tried to do what I thought he wanted or was okay with. And I've been here for like months, like well over 3.5, if not 4 or more months. And to me, the way that he's just ornery, It's like unhappy people, unfulfilled people, people who are not aware, who choose not to be self-aware and like take a good hard look at themselves. They will just, and then that's what they'll accuse you of doing. And that's, in the marriage, that's definitely what Tracy always did. Everything if I wanted him to spend more time with me, because of course I didn't realize I was, being conned and it was like a false marriage, of course, right? If I wanted him to spend more time with me and I like would talk to him about that, talk to him about how he made me feel, like maybe that he only wanted to spend time with me when he wanted sex, and I felt that. I felt very used. Of course, I didn't know he was doing it on purpose or anything about black magic at the time, but he would have this way of like, well, it's because of how you are, it's blah, 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 blah. And so, you're bringing a genuine concern to someone and they twist it around and it's like, well, yeah, of course he doesn't spend time with you. You're such an awful person, And it's like, but then when I would say, well, then I think we should get divorced, like, oh, no. And honestly, the way it just went down here uh, uh, with at the hotel, very similar to at Love's. It's like it's like it is similar to the churches and the marriage. It's like this idea. They're not saying the word submit, but it's like in essence they want you to submit to what they're saying, even if it changes every week. They can raise their voice at you, but how dare you, like, defend yourself and try to advocate for yourself? You know what I mean? Like, the housekeeper who was nosy and butted in, like, I can't imagine doing that. If her and the manager, and they have been going at it, who am I to come by and start putting my 2 cents in? Oh my God, she would be completely livid. And I wasn't livid, but I told her I said, excuse me, I don't know why you're choosing to do that, but this conversation is being had by the right people. Like, I don't know why you're doing. She was like, oh my God, I've seen this lady act so unprofessional. That's not even the word. It's just toxicity. And when you have looked at yourself, and I don't claim perfection or anything like it, but I have really, really, like, I've examined every part of me. I've done away with any kind of putting on, any mask, which I would have always thought, well, my masks are nice, that's me just being, but sometimes we can just be too nice, and people will just take advantage of you. I feel like that's what they wanted at Love's. They want everyone when they open the door chimes, and they want you to say, welcome to Love's. But it's like, do we really care about the customer, or do we just want them to think we do? I think it's the latter, because why would we use dirty towels to quote clean for the next person? Why would we not care about having good practices, hygienic practices that would be, probably what is lawful, if we really care about the customer? But if we only care about the customer believing that we care, so they'll keep coming because what we really care about is the dollar, then that's more in line with what I see there. And I realize this is a business. I don't think me wanting first of all, no service is not my idea. I didn't think it up. It's not some off-the-wall harebrained idea that, like, no one's ever heard of. This is, he told me, yeah, that's no problem, when I checked in, like, literally when I checked in. And a lot of that has to do with just not wanting anybody coming in my room for a lot of reasons. And they've had people who were stealing, who worked here, who he did fire when he found out they were. So, but it's not just stealing. It's a lot of reasons. I don't want people in my room. There's nothing wrong with that. So it's like it's like me wanting to change my bedding today turned into this whole huge problem. And it really shouldn't have. And it isn't because I did anything wrong. I didn't do anything wrong. Here, you're supposed to be able to have your bedding changed once a week. It shouldn't be a problem. And I'm doing exactly what he told me to do last week. And I didn't know he was telling me to do something that he wasn't happy with. Like, it's just crazy. And when you deal with these kind of things, whether it's work or home or wherever it is, and all the different kinds of ways that it is, it's like, if you don't have a real, like, sure foundation of, like, who you are, not that you're perfect, not that you don't ever make mistakes. I'm definitely someone who owns their mistakes and I even said, like, I'll do it your way if I know what that is. Like, when we're not sure about who we are, or that we are moving from, like, a baseline of, like, integrity, we'll just kind of get taken up by other people's riled emotions, like waves just tossing us this way and that. And I remember this in the marriage so much, it can be enough to just make our whole day ruined, just like make us distraught, make us just to re-question ourselves in ways that is very unhealthy. Where, like him making the comment when I'm pretty much out the door, and I didn't turn back. I just let him say whatever he wants to say. Like, I think that was really uncalled for and a very low blow. But if he wants to say, no wonder why you got fired. No, I got fired because the business is not upright, and they tried to say it wasn't a good fit. I'm a hard worker. I haven't done anything wrong. Not that I haven't done anything wrong ever and I'm a perfect person, that's not what I mean, but I haven't done anything wrong. Wanting to change my bed or bringing, public safety concerns, hygienic kind of concerns at a business, or wanting the husband to spend time with you, or not being okay with like all of his aggression and the really messed up way he would treat me, or talking to him. How many times did I ever try to talk to him about a lot of it was, it was marital rape, but because I didn't believe in marital rape, talking to him about the way he made me feel, the way it made me feel used, or the way it reminded me when I was raped when I was 11, or, but not secure enough in, I knew how I felt, but able to still be kind of taken along for the ride when someone doesn't validate your how you feel. You know what I mean? They gaslight you, and I didn't know those terms and stuff. But they make it all your fault. You're the problem for even coming and asking, or for even going to church leaders. They well, you're not submissive enough. That's why blah 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 blah. You're not this, you're not that. It's like nobody deserves to be treated the way that I have been being treated, and the kind of things that I was disclosing to them as I was, reaching out for help. Probably, and for a long time, it was years in between. It really would take an awful lot. And then as closer toward the end of me leaving, I kept trying more regularly. And I was seeing a pattern by then. I still didn't know the terms. Learning the terms like gaslighting or psychological abuse. I probably knew that term, but I didn't really know the ins and outs, and how perfectly my life was fitting the dynamic of how that plays out. And it can just get you to like completely second guess yourself to in a really bad way, and have really negative consequences. And you start to like push away your intuition, and that's why I don't get riled up the way some of these people do, because it's like, okay, hold on, even if you think this X, Y, or Z about me wanting to like clean my room and change my bedding today, or even if you think, I should just already somehow be pre-programmed to know all the things I need to know as the cashier at this new job, I know that's not true. I know that I'm not being irrational or unreasonable. So if we know, like I said, this is not about being perfect, and it's not about being right all the time either. I can be wrong. As I tried to explain to this manager today, okay, this is what you told me this week. That's why I did it this way, but I'll do whatever way you want. But he's switching it to where I can't do it anymore. It has to be the housekeeper. It's like, okay. I literally have been here for months. He's not a happy person, and that's what you're dealing with a lot of the times. You're dealing with people they're not happy people, no matter what they might. In some of my most unhappy years in the marriage, which was a direct reflection of me being abused for so long, I certainly knew how to put on a smile and go out and sell my soap, and there was a genuineness somewhat, because I do love people, and I liked being outside. There were certain things I certainly did enjoy. It wasn't that all my smiles were fake, but I hid like a wall, that's what a mask is, I hid that I was living in turmoil, that I might cry myself to sleep many nights a week because of how hopeless the situation seemed, feeling like you can't leave, that God frowns on divorce in such a way, and you just really want to please. You want to please God, and you've learned and you've almost been conditioned, even since childhood, to not listen to yourself. You've been groomed. Being secure in like your own personhood, like who you are, and coming to that place, it's like a peace. It's almost like the peace that Christians would say you get when you find Jesus, which of course I did believe that for a long time, but the fruit wasn't there. I wished it was, but it is. It's like this peace that y'all can think whatever you want. Like, it doesn't matter, and it might feel sometimes that the whole world is against me, or that so many people, every which way I look, that they're like, I certainly don't have any friends right now, but all I see around me is toxic, so that's okay. I'm not going to align with those people, and I believe that I'll be given opportunities to meet people who are more like me, in that they're grounded, not that they're just like me in every way, but that they're got a hold of themselves emotionally, that they're grounded and balanced. And I'm balanced, like, no matter how hard. And I don't know if these people are just this unhealed, or if maybe they're trying to get under my skin, and there are people like that in the world who are trying to bring you down, because they might even notice that you have a glow, or you have a way about you, or you got fire, but you're still sitting outside every day writing your poetry and soaking in the sun, and you still have a smile on your face, even though I would have a lot of reasons to not have a smile on my face, and kind of like this whole the guy today, acting like I need to maybe find somewhere else to live. It's like, I'm paying by the week here for how long? What have I done? Like, the kind of people that you should be trying to tell they need to find a new place, can't stay at the hotel anymore, people who are littering all over the place, or they're staying maybe they're being really loud beyond the hours that the hotel asks, or those kind of things. Not someone who is doing the same thing they've been doing the whole time they've been there, cleaning their own room, which has been fine. You see what I'm saying? That's ridiculous. And he was just complaining yesterday that people don't clean up after themselves, and the housekeepers aren't happy to find the way some of the rooms have been left, and I don't blame them. And so as he's saying, you're the only one who comes here for the broom, I'm like, didn't you just say yesterday that people don't clean up after their animals, and people don't even clean up after themselves? I'm like, it's almost laughable. I'm the only one of all these people, making it sound like it's a bad thing. It's like, okay, sure. I'm a bad guy. I want to use the broom, and this is only once a week. I'm not going in there all the time. I'm going in there to check for my packages, because I have food that is days late, but that's what I have to do to look for my packages. That's where the packages get put. So a lot of it is just really unprofessional, and that's what I was dealing with at Lowe's too. When someone sends an email, whether they're a customer or they're an employee, if someone sends a management a letter that is not malicious, a letter that was written kindly and I believe respectfully, but points out things that don't seem like good practice, that letter should be responded to, and that's not too much to ask. Nor should I have to say, can you please respond to my letter? This is not just a one-way communication that I'm not looking for a response, even though there were no questions, but I was never responded to. So this is all, to me, if someone would listen to what I'm saying and it would resonate with them, then they would probably be a lot more on the line of people who are also balanced and reasonable. I feel like just being a reasonable person, I would respond to an email over much less, you know? Even if you would just respond to say, you know, we're in receipt of your email. Thank you for your concerns. You know, it might be 2 months before we get back with you, or we will consider this, and then never even get back with you any more than that. Like, even that is something. And I won't cower and become like nothing, which is like the whole biblical submission, what that did to me for all those years. Like, I won't like not have an opinion just because someone else doesn't like it. I won't, and I'm not being obtuse with I'm not going around, you must think like me, you must do it my way. I'm quite the opposite of that. I'm very gracious, you know, and honestly, my expectations for that original letter to Loves, even if they weren't going to change a whole lot, they did change things because of my letter, but they never acknowledged that I had made some good points. They just started doing things different, probably because they were scared I had actually turned them in, and I hadn't, and I still haven't. Yeah, they fired me, and that is illegal, and that's something that should be addressed by someone higher up than the people that were able to fire me. And I even had the lady, she did it over the phone, and I even asked her, I said, okay, can you just tell me exactly what the like technical reason is? And she literally said, it's not a good fit. Like, once again, just like with the hotel guy kind of wanting to threaten that I can't maybe live here. It's like, you don't fire people who are good hard workers, who even have the bravery and gumption in a good way to like say, hey, you know, this practice here this could actually be, this is not a good practice, okay, to at least consider. Those are the people that you fire. You should fire the people who are, you know, trying to take cash from the drawer and sneak it into their purse or pocket, or, you know, people who aren't getting the aspects of the job, like if when there's not customers, you're supposed to be doing something else. Where I was like always even asking, okay, what else can I be doing? And then I would find things, you know, that I could be doing after I'd been there for a number of days and I understood what I could be doing. And I wasn't just ever just kind of like idly just kind of hanging around, whatever. I was always looking for things to do. And that's a good employee. So I wasn't fired for a valid reason. And it isn't fair. And it kind of does suck when you are dealing with so much on the receiving end of so much like toxic behavior towards you. And it's like, wow, like, it's almost like what's wrong with me that all these people are like, what in the world? But it probably sounds a little bit religious, and I don't mean it that way, but you know, when your light shines brightly, it's almost like people are attracted to it and can hate it at the same time. I wonder where the people are in the world who have dealt with what I'm talking about, and what I'm saying really like resonates with them. Because, you know, whether people say earth angel or whatever way you want to look at it, like, if people hate someone who's so loving and so compassionate, who has such a heart for giving, who cares in general, who cares about really so many things and so many people, And I even care about people who have done me really wrong, really wrong. And that's where I've had to learn boundaries. But like, for someone who has such a genuine and compassionate heart to be on the receiving end where people like hate you, like, that's them. That is not because there's something wrong with me. And I think that's been the case even before I healed for a lot of the things. When I was going to the church leaders, there should have been a validating of what I was saying. There should have been naming it what it was, which was abuse. There should have been some kind of real tangible help, not just, well, we'll pray for you. There should have been some kind of tangible, physical, even monetary help, being that I was a stay-at-home mom for all this time, with all these kids. There should have been something to really help, me to be able to do something different and not have to stay stuck because of financial reasons. But now that I know that those people are actually cannibals who sacrifice people, humans, and live off of people's energy, then it's like, oh my God, it's such a paradigm shift. Like, well, no wonder you never got any help. You see what I mean? Like, I never would have thought that of those pastors and their wives, obviously. I never would have thought that of anybody. Just like when we watch the movie, the Silencing of the Lambs, we think that main character is such a creep and such an awful person. Can you imagine that that's what, like, I don't know if it's half or fourth of the population is into? Energy harvesting by using black magic, and even including murder and cannibalism. These are the people who gaslit me. So it's been a long road to get to where I truly trust myself, and I'm not abandoning myself so that these guys can feel better. It's not happening. And the other thing is, I just wanted to say it is enough still to be upsetting, and it is enough almost, like, I feel like I left off recording and I went back in there to check on my packages, which were here now, but it is enough to almost make me want to cry. I don't think I will cry. I also think it's okay if I did cry, but it hurts. And I was also thinking the power that what other people thought the power it had over me for so many years was because it literally, with the church people and the husband, and even like our kids that were old enough to voice their own 2 cents, everyone was saying the same thing. And what they were saying was that I was the problem, and I was the reason Dad got so mad, and I was the reason yada yada yada. So when you have in any given situation, when you have like everybody, now I know the term flying monkeys, but even like the housekeeper butting in today here at the hotel, right? Like, and knowing that everyone else in the room, which was like 2 other people who were his relatives, that everyone else was, even if they weren't saying anything, everyone else was most likely on this guy's side. It's sort of like, that's why I started recording when I realized that there was becoming an issue at Love's, because just like the manager refused to talk to me until someone else was present, I'm like, okay. And I'm thinking to myself, who's there to protect me? Who's there to be an advocate for me to say, even legally to say, no, that's not what was said, and that's why I started recording. But when we have a situation, it might be a toxic family, and that's happened to me too. When mom and sisters are both saying, you're blah, 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 and there's no one to say, she's not doing anything wrong, and that's how you grow up. And then even into adulthood, that kind of thing continues, and you think of like, Christmas or Thanksgiving or whatever big family get-togethers, and it's like you really are the quote black sheep. You really do become the one who just kind of takes the brunt of everyone's like negativity. It's kind of just thrusted toward you. And for so long I didn't like it. It wasn't like I was like, oh, okay, I'll accept being. I tried to stand up for myself, but now I would know I just needed to cut ties with them. So many years ago, and drawing those clear boundaries with people who you've begged for years to please don't talk to me that way, or please don't, refer to me in this way, or that hurts me, or, when you've tried all the other lesser boundaries and they don't respect your boundaries of, not speaking to you a certain way or whatever, you need to cut those people out of your life, no matter who they are. No matter who they are. And it's not an easy decision, and it's painful, especially when it includes like adult children, or, maybe every sibling and parent and aunt and relative that you have. That's painful, extremely painful. I believe I'll get my younger kids back, and I will offer to them healing, but I don't believe, there's anything to get back with, especially with finding out of the level of evil that my family is capable and have done. Human sacrifice, I believe, is probably the epitome of evil. Molesting children and killing people, like you can't get any worse than that, I don't think. So there's a strength that's born in what we wouldn't ever choose for ourselves, but in being alone, even when you're around the whole entire family at Thanksgiving, to being alone in these situations, not having anybody stand up for you, builds a certain character, a certain strength. I'm still only running into people who despise it, but I know that there's a lot of good in the strength that I have, even though it's been born out of pain and neglect and what hasn't been and the things that weren't right. So I just want to encourage anybody who is in that situation, big or small, where you feel like everyone's ganging up on you and you're not perfect, but you are genuine and you aren't ill intent. You don't have ill intent. You're not maliciously intending, to hurt others. And no one deserves to be abused. No one deserves to be abused. Not by their sister, not by their boyfriend. Abuse is about control. I think that, yes, it definitely can include things like punches, but it doesn't always. And when it pretty much never does, over decades, it can be a little hard to even know for sure if it is abuse. When you're belittled, when people want to kind of squash you down, it's about pumping themselves up to make themselves feel better by belittling you, and it's a form of control.